And we saw that nobody was doing this, right? So if I really ask, what is a great brand that you can potentially wear to work, sober enough in terms of design, it doesn't look like a sports shoe, but at the same time is great for 12-13 hours that you need to wear every day. We couldn't think of a great brand to do this.
This product is being loved by people and they are willing to pay, right, a certain price. I'm sure you went through some price iteration. So just talk to us a little bit about this journey. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on Signals and Levers by foundershiphq.com. My name is Bimlesh Gundrav and I'm going to be your host today, and I'm a partner co-founder at Foundership HQ. Foundership.hq.com is a platform where we enable startups accelerating their business growth journey by enabling them with coaching, capital, and community. So in today's episode, I'm very excited to have Ganesh balakrishnan, who is the CEO and co-founder at Flatheads.in, one of India's very fast-growing consumer-oriented footwear brand, specifically focusing on tropical climate. And today we are going to talk about how is he building a fantastic D2C brand in India and also now expanding globally around the world. So welcome, Ganesh. Great to have you today.
Thanks, Bimlesh. Great to be here, and super excited that you're kicking off this podcast episodes again with me first. Normally, they say you should start with Ganesh for good luck, no? So good stuff.
Fantastic, nice one. So Ganesh, talk to us a little bit. You're a 2x entrepreneur, so give us a little background, for our listeners. What was your previous startup about? I'll share a small anecdote which I shared with you last time as well for the benefit of the listeners. So talk to us a little bit about your previous startup and what inspired you to start Flat.
Sure. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 8 years now. And before that, in my corporate journey of about 15 years, I've done mostly entrepreneurial ventures within large corporate as well. I was doing specific growth initiatives, right, which was like a small startup team, if you will. So this has been something that has been on my mind for a while. My friend from college, Utkarsh, is a designer. So I'm a more business kind of guy. I used to be a consultant at Bain. I used to be a corporate strategist at Honeywell. So that's the side, the business side of things that I normally see. And Utkarsh and I actually, after college, 15 years later, we got along in Honeywell, where we were working together, leading a P&L for India. And that's when the whole left brain, right brain combination started clicking. Right, so he used to come in with a lot of the consumer insights and design thinking processes, and all the rich insights from there. And I used to look at the numbers side of things, where how does the business case look, how does the market size look, how does the TAM look, and stuff like that. And that started gelling pretty well, and we said, okay, maybe we can do this on our own as well. So that's how we kicked off rather. We started with a mobile payments app called Momo. Right, Momo was in 2013 when 3G had just launched. Momo was a first of its kind pay with your phone at restaurants, retail stores, toll roads, and so on. So physical location payments, right? What you do with your QR code scan right now with Google Pay or Phone Pay is what we were doing in 2013. So you could load your credit card, debit card, and then pay. It was like a payment gateway on your phone, right? So that's how we kicked off. It was a first of its kind thing, so it was almost market defining. We had to educate the market what we were doing. A lot of people assume that if it's a mobile payments app, at that time, mobile payments meant you could recharge your phone and you could do utility payments, right? Electricity bill, kind of thing. So a lot of people would come in, they would look at the app and go back and say, where is the recharge? I'm giving you 1 star, right? So you had to actually go in and educate the customer on what we were doing, right? And building a very tech forward kind of a brand was a very interesting journey that we went through. And of course, payments is a completely different challenge altogether. Both of us are not from the payment industry. Once we walked into it is when we realized, oh my God, what do we got ourselves into? Right? So it was a very steep learning curve, let me say that. But superb journey. We grew Momo over 3 years across 3 cities. Got almost 500,000 subscribers plus on the platform transacting, and we raised some funds as well from VCs. And then later on, after 3 years, we exited to a e-commerce player who was a unicorn called ShopClues, and spent some time there in e-commerce at scale. Pan India, lakhs and lakhs of orders coming through. Which is when we saw that a lot of action was happening in the fashion and the lifestyle space, where micro brands were starting to get created on marketplaces, right? So then we said, maybe there is a space for brands to evolve here. Utkarsh and I normally travel abroad quite a bit on work and in general as well. And when you go to a little more developed markets, you can see how the brand trajectory has taken off. And not only global brands, which is Nike, Puma, Adidas in our shoe world,
Right.
but there are a lot of local brands who understand the audience, who build products specifically for the use cases that are there in the local area and the local culture. And accordingly, they have grown to be pretty decently sized. If you look at China, there are brands which combined about 3 or 4 brands are equal to what Nike, Puma, Adidas are in market share, right? So they are competing very well with them. Right? And you can see this happening across the board. You go to Singapore, you go to Europe, you go to US, you see a lot of this brand journey happening out there, which is when we said, okay, this is very interesting. Why don't we look at D2C brands as a story? And then we said, okay, which area should we look at? So we actually were exploring multiple spaces, and it so happened that Utkarsh is a big shoe freak. He's got about 120 pairs of shoes with him.
Wow.
So and being a designer, he's always eternally curious about what's the latest style, what is the latest material, what's the latest design that's out there. Right. So we usually spend a lot of time trend spotting in shoes. So automatically the conversation started veering towards shoes. We looked at 2 or 3 areas, but then shoes was something that unconsciously we knew that we'll get to it. Right. So since 2013 we started working on this concept of an everyday sneaker for the Indian urban lifestyle. It's been about we launched the shoe in November 2019, so it's been exactly 2 years now, and it's a fun ride. To call it a roller coaster is a understatement with all the pandemic and all that stuff happening.
Right.
But it's been a very interesting journey so far.
Fantastic. So once you got an insight, so all these insights predominantly came, with your journey in ShopClues, right? When you're looking at, what brand categories or what product categories are fast moving or having a certain margins, or the emergence of micro brands, taking baby steps there. So now it would be fair to assume that you manufacture this product end to end, or you outsource it and manufacture it through a third party. How do you manage that today?
So right now it is contract manufactured. So the designs are done by us. We have an in-house design team. So we create our own sneakers. We use our own material innovations in order to get the right product for the right use case. And then we get it contract manufactured. So there are multiple manufacturers out there who we work with on exclusive agreements. So they cannot make the show for anybody else. So those are the exclusive contracts that we have.
Fantastic. So talk to us a little bit as to how the brand name evolved, Flatheads.
So we had actually been shooting around names for almost a month, right? Ideas around, we wanted to make knit sneakers, right? So knit is a very fiber related thing, right? So we started looking at Super Threads as a name, and in that direction we were going. Soul Threads was already existing; it was a open footwear brand, which is when I said, okay, Super Threads is too close, so let's not go there. Then we started looking at other names of communities which are emotionally connected and have a strong bonding with each other, right? So that's the zone in which we were looking. So Flatheads happens to be a racing engine, right, which is used in drag races. It is used by automotive enthusiasts, right? So Flatheads are known as automotive enthusiasts. So that's like a very close knit group. And Utkarsh happens to be an automotive enthusiast as well. I used to do drag racing when I was a kid. So kid as in college, post college. So that sounded pretty good, and most importantly, the domain was available, which is a big deal right now, right? So
Right.
once that was available, we said, okay, this sounds good. The beauty of the name is it is not restricted to footwear, right? It is something that can actually hold a larger umbrella of multiple product categories and lifestyle itself, if you will. Right? And to begin with, it's a cool enough. It rhymes with sneakerhead, right? And as soon as you hear it, there is a little bit of a pause in your mind. Huh, what does that mean? Flatheads, right? So we wanted
That question to
association with
come
the
in.
brand.
Yeah.
Exactly. Last time when we did Momo, we had the spelling was Momoe, right?
Right.
And everybody would get stuck. They would look at it and say, okay, should we pronounce it Momoi? Should we call it Momo? Should we call it Momi? What is it, right? And then people remember, oh yeah, I've seen this brand before, right? So there is a little bit of an association there. Momo actually stood for mobile money everywhere, right? Momo.
Okay.
And that's how the short form came through. But the concept of having something that resonates with a lifestyle brand as well as catches people's attention is something that we wanted, and Flatheads filters both, so we picked that.
Fantastic. So, talk to us a little bit about your initial journey of, you had no experience in manufacturing, with your previous startup. It was a purely a digital startup, and now, going on to the other side of the spectrum, getting into another, trying to build a consumer brand in a footwear segment, which is very physical, product oriented. So, talk to us about the initial ideation and the first lot of sneakers that came out. How did you go out to the market, get feedback on it, and what was a big signal for you to know that?
And when we ran Momo, one of the things that we also realized is, core tech driven businesses, if we don't have coding knowledge, becomes a little bit of a challenge. And we were a little too old to start learning coding from scratch at that time. I used to still do some, Visual Basic macro coding, if you will, on Excel, but that was the extent of what I could do. When you're looking at a intense technology space like payments, it's a very different game, right? So whereas in shoes, yes, there is a lot of domain knowledge involved. It is an engineered product. Not everybody can just decide to launch a shoe. If you know a friend in Tirupur, chances are you can put a nice graphic and you can launch a T-shirt. But shoes are a lot more engineered. You need to understand it a lot more deeper. But that did not feel like a big challenge to us because number one, Utkarsh has been thinking and talking about the shoe design part for a long time, right? We've been talking about it. We've been trying to understand it. He has actually cut open a couple of shoes, which I think is criminal, but that's what designers do, right? So I have seen him cut open shoes and then analyze what the materials are, how the shoe works and stuff like that. And we didn't see that as a big challenge. We said, okay, it is a learning curve that we need to go through, and we need to get the right team together. It's not like you need to do everything on your own, right? So you need to get the right team together to build it out. As long as you understand what your overall vision is on what you want to build, right? So our idea with Flatheads was we wanted to build an everyday sneaker that an urban lifestyle in the tropical climate can utilize every day, right? So very simple stuff. And this was insights that we gained through talking to more than 200, 300 customers, going and looking at their customer closets and taking pictures of the closets and analyzing which are the shoes that they use the most and then having that conversation with them. What we realized was that in the tropical climate, when you're hot, you wear t-shirts. Similarly, in your feet, if you're hot, why are you wearing t-shirts? This is as simple as that, right? It's if you really look at the shoes, in the name of cushioning, we actually fill so many layers between your foot and the outside environment that your feet are not breathing at all. It's like a microwave. Your feet are cooking inside. Right. So in the tropical climate, you really need something that is breathable and something that gives you that airy feeling. Right. That was one. Second was, if you're walking in the shoes for 12, 13 hours, it needs to be super comfortable. It needs to be cushiony. Right. Most people used to, along with casual wear, they would wear sports shoes. Right. But the problem with sports shoes is they are built for running. Right. And running means the impact loads that land on the shoe are more than 2 to 3 times of your body weight. And that's what they're designed for. They're designed for a spring back kind of an action. What you need is when you lie down on your bed, it's like a mattress, right? It needs to sink a little, it needs to take your weight and it needs to cushion you. And that's how long wear shoes are supposed to be built for. And we saw that nobody was doing this, right? So if I really ask, what is a great brand that you can potentially wear to work? sober enough in terms of design. It doesn't look like a sports shoe, but at the same time is great for 12-13 hours that you need to wear every day. We couldn't think of a great brand to do this, except probably Skechers, which has some muted colors which people would wear. But there was no brand who was addressing this space, and the space seemed large enough, right? Urban working professionals are the biggest audience there in terms of the consumer consumer market, which is when we said, okay, maybe we should start exploring here. Then it was about, so we believe in first principles thinking, right? Both me and Utkarsh, we've gone through the IIT rigor, and that is one thing that has stayed with us, the whole first principles thinking. We said, even in Momo, that was very important, even though we were not techies, just understanding what the use case is and how do you then create products for that use case. So first of all, understanding the problem is the most critical part. Solutions, there are many solutions for the problem at hand. And then going step by step and saying, okay, let us break down the shoe to the bare minimum, right? What does the shoe need? It just needs three basic components. It needs the sole, it needs the insole, and it needs an upper, right? That's it. If you completely go bare bones, right?
Right.
Then we broke it down to those layers, and then we started studying each of the layers. Then we started doing some engineering research into each of those. We started speaking to experts in the shoe industry to do that. We started going to factories and starting to see what kind of materials are being used. Did a lot of primary research, secondary research, and stuff like that. But by the way, so we started working on this in April 2018, and we launched the shoe in November 2019. So it took us a good year and a half to make that happen, right? So it's not trivial. There's a lot of work to be done in that year and a half. We went to a lot of factories, not only in India. We went to China, we went to Vietnam, right? Just going and sitting in the factories, going to trade fairs, finding vendors, insisting on going to the factory, sitting with them, understanding how the prototyping is done, understanding how patterns are made. There was a lot of learning to be done, and we went through that growth curve. Fortunately, both of us like working in prototype labs and getting our hands dirty, so that was easy to do, right? I think we made at least 12 to 15 prototypes, and at one point in time, the vendors were sick and tired of us saying, when are you actually going to produce a shoe, right? And they charged us for making the prototype. Beyond the point, they'll make one or two for you, but beyond that, you have to pay. But that is part of the learning curve that you need to go through, and you need to be patient enough to go through that. Once we did that is when we then eventually we landed upon a proper shoe in the 15th or 16th prototype, where we were satisfied with what we had. Right? That was something that we were wearing around everywhere, and it was comfortable enough, it was cushiony enough, it was something that would keep the breathability as well. I could wear it sockless, right? Those kind of things were criteria that we had defined, which started working for us. Then we made a bunch of samples, we gave it to a bunch of people, asked them to wear it, alpha testers, right? And gave us feedback after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So started doing that journey, and then we finally landed upon the first set of sneakers that we wanted to launch. Incidentally, we looked at Indian ecosystem quite deeply at that time to see if there are vendors who can manufacture these shoes. But Indian ecosystem was quite nascent. India is great in leather shoes and basic canvas kind of sports shoes. But in the knit fibers, we are a little behind because it's mostly an automated system, and there's a lot of capital investment in machinery that needs to be put in place before you start manufacturing these. Right? So if you look at more developed markets, you look at Singapore, you look at China, you look at Hong Kong, you look at Europe, knit shoes are par for the course, right? It's pretty much mainstream, but India, it is still just catching up. So there's that technology has been existing since 2013-14 when Nike started it. But since then, every brand has adopted it. In India, it's still new, which is when we said, okay, there is a window here which we can actually capture. And t-shirts are knit, right? So it fit right into our hypothesis as well, where the same breathability and lightness aspect of it is something that we can bring out. So all those things just came together well when we started going deeper and deeper into the product and the materials and stuff like that. Eventually, we started making our shoes in China and in Vietnam and got those first lot in. Again, huge challenges there because you don't understand the language. We actually had to go and sit in the workshop to make our shoes, right? The designers that we had, they went there. I was supposed to go there for an inspection for a couple of days and then come back. I ended up extending my trip for a month because we had a lot of things to be checked in terms of quality and in terms of making sure the patterns are right and the material is right and the final shoe is coming out to the right expectations that we have. So a lot of those things, are once you're into it, you're into it. Like, there's no going back. So you just need to get it. So that's how it happened. So after that, we had to figure out the logistics of the import as well, coming to India. So that was another big journey for us. Right? How ensuring that you can actually send money abroad, get shoes back. We're still trying to do that paperwork. We're still trying to figure it out. By the way, it's a big process of learning altogether. But so that's been the journey so far. November 2019 is when we launched our first shoes. With the consumers, so once our hypothesis was clear that, hey, this is what we wanted to go after, then we started talking to customers about, specifically, our target audience was urban working professionals, right? And now in the urban working professionals, if you look at it, who are the people who are early adopters, who are people who are willing to experiment, who are the people who are ahead of the curve in terms of what the market is bringing out. So we saw a nice overlap with entrepreneurs, right? Because they themselves are trying something new, so they are open to trying something new as well in return. So we had a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs who were super excited once we started talking about this concept. The other beautiful thing about entrepreneurs is they are always active. They are always walking around. They're always on their feet. So this use case resonated with them very powerfully. Right? And the third thing is, if your target audience is urban working professionals, the aspirational part is entrepreneurship, right? Everybody in the corporate office is looking up to what's going on in the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. So it fit in very well with the brand thesis as well, and the target audience in terms of early adopters. So we started going to entrepreneurs. I was pretty much on LinkedIn, me and Utkarsh, both of us, and the early team. Every day we used to ping at least 30, 40 people who are entrepreneurs. We just searched for co-founder, entrepreneur, right, these keywords. Startup as a keyword, and then started sending messages out. And a lot of people would be receptive as well, right? When they hear something new coming out which they have not heard before, immediately they'll ask, hey, what is this about? And then you start having that conversation. Eventually, we started getting entrepreneurs to try the shoes, started giving us feedback. People started talking about it. LinkedIn actually became a hack for us. We got a significant amount of organic traffic coming from LinkedIn. While most brands are built on Instagram, we were starting to get built on LinkedIn. That was very interesting. So that's how the initial traction and initial hypothesis testing in the market happened. And we started seeing good reviews coming back and feedback coming back from the early adopters saying, hey, you know what? All that stuff that you promised around, everyday shoes, this is working out really well. And that gave us the confidence to go and say, okay, boss, we can actually build something like this, and we can take this story ahead. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, so talk to me about a little bit about this entire brand building philosophy, because now in the consumer space, you are trying to create a new segment, right, with urban lifestyle for the tropical climate. So, what got into the entire brand communication philosophy? Because spend some time talking to us about your entire branding story and and the couple of campaigns that you did to help increase the reach out to this, and also this brand campaign also would have helped you to raise your angel and your seed round of money as well.
So to be honest, brands, actually the brand communication piece of it, the brand strategy and brand communication piece of it is something that we are not experts at, right? I'll be upfront in saying that, and we are still going up the learning curve. I'm more e-commerce performance guy, right? Utkarsh is more the product guy and supply chain guy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It is something that we are also figuring out as we go along, and we've got some experts who have been helping us along the way. But I'll just share some of the things that we have done and some of the mistakes we have made and what we have learned from them. Right. In the initial days, our idea was, as I said, urban working professionals. We said, one of the positionings we can take is potentially being unalike, right? Being unconventional, doing something that you're really passionate about, and that's what we stand for. Right? Resonates well with
the Apple misfits. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was the area that we wanted to explore. Right. Your individuality is what we stand for. So that was
Right.
broadly what we wanted to explore. That started working well when we started getting entrepreneurs on board with the analytic positioning and started having that conversation. And in the initial phases, people started recognizing the brand for that messaging, as well as the fact that the startup guys were wearing the shoe. Right, it became a little bit of that startup shoe kind of a this thing. And there is a playbook on this by Allbirds, which just went IPO. They're the largest footwear brand, D2C footwear brand that has come out in the last 5 years.
Okay.
And they started in the Silicon Valley, very similar playbook, if you will.
Okay.
They created that playbook, right? So we said, okay, maybe we can try this out. And it started working. But the problem was November 2019 is when we launched, right? And 4 months in March 2020 is when the pandemic hit. And suddenly people stopped going to work. Right? Our proposition was, this is a great shoe for work and beyond. That so it was more work, which is why entrepreneurs, which is why urban working professionals, blah blah blah.
Right.
And that completely went away. Right? Suddenly, you're in a void and you're trying to talk work, but nobody is listening to you because nobody is going to work at all. So it became a survival conversation in the office, saying, "Hey, are we even in the right category? This lockdown is not. We don't know how this is going to go. Right? Things were getting worse and worse every day at that time, and we were really trying to figure out what to do. Which is when one of the things we thought was maybe at this point in time, because work from home is a big thing, people are now starting to work from home, and that continued for a while, which is when we said maybe there are specific use cases around work from home that we can start working on, right? So we moved our product communication to and brand communication to a little more functional, calling it ridiculously comfortable sneakers, because comfort was one big thing that people really wanted. Right? You would wear your
Right.
pajamas and sit at home. You really were talking about comfort and hygiene were the big things that were generally part of the conversation. We said, okay, maybe that is one thing that we can try. Similarly, the product ranges also, we launched a loafer which you can just slip on and walk around just for your daily walk. We launched a slider which is like a chappal which you can wear at home, right? So product wise also we pivoted and we started looking at what can we do for the current urban lifestyle use case, right? That was the urban lifestyle use case that we had to go after. Of course, unlike a tech product, building a product from scratch and then bringing it to the market takes a lot of time. So
Right.
it took us longer than what we would have done on an app, for example. But eventually we started communicating a lot more functionally, and that started resonating with the audience. And the product ranges also had to be very similar to what the customers were using, and that happened. Now that things are starting to open up, now we are building our brand communication piece again, trying to build out a much stronger emotional connect and personality for the brand that we can launch to the market. So stay tuned. In the next month, you will see something new coming. We are still working on it. So that's broadly the brand communication piece, if you will.
Okay. Now, you spoke about your product range, right? So you started with sneakers. Now you have floaters and you got sliders and stuff like that. So what was the signal that you used to decide that this is the time that you got to expand your product portfolio?
So it was not expansion. We actually, while we had our existing line, two or three things there, right? Number one, the pandemic was a huge signal. Number one, right? So where the lifestyle itself changed and the work concept went away, which is when we said we have to build something for people sitting at home, right? You're still walking around. You're doing your 10,000 steps, right, with your Fitbit. So what do you use for your 10,000 steps? It's not your performance shoe. Typically, it would be a light jogger or an everyday shoe. Maybe we can hit that spot. So that is something that we started doing. Our shoe is great for that 10,000 steps every day, right? So communication around that. Then we changed the product line also. This happened after the first wave, right? First wave was the first signal where we said maybe people will not wear shoes for the next year. Even you never know how bad this pandemic is going to be, which is when we started selling masks, right? It was topical. Our suppliers were making knit masks because we make knit fibers, and masks are made of knit fibers. And they had the supply here. Everybody was asking for masks. It was a big shortage, which is when we said, okay, we'll start making masks, right? It was a very tactical move as a signal response to the signal that came through in terms of the pandemic. And then broadly, when people started sitting at home and not going back, is when we said, yeah, how long are you going to say, work shoes, work shoes, work shoes? Maybe we should start doing something around this. And that's when we started pivoting the product line. When we did that, incidentally, what happened was because of the pandemic, the supply chain was also disrupted big time, right? So getting supply from international borders was very, very hard. Which is when we said, maybe, right at this point in time, there is not much demand. And we already have inventory for the next X amount of months, depending on how fast this market picks up again. Until then, we have enough time. Maybe we can use this time to actually start building the supply chain in India itself, right? So that was a big signal for us once disruption happened with the supply chain. Then we started talking to a lot of the Indian suppliers on what we can build here. And surprisingly, what happened was the Indian suppliers also had a lot of their orders cancelled, right, from Europe and the US, because they were in the throes of the pandemic. So a lot of those orders got cancelled as well. So all the big high quality suppliers were stuck with inventory, stuck with machinery, which was underutilized, right? So the factories were lying vacant, and they really wanted to utilize the factory, machinery and equipment and resources, which is when they started working with even small players like us. Normally, unless you have a minimum amount of shoes that you will make, they will not engage with you. Especially the big guys who supply to foreign brands are very reluctant to engage. But they found an opportunity to work with us as well, because they wanted somebody to occupy that space. And for us, it was serendipity, right? We went there because we didn't have a choice. Our shoes were not coming from China. But when we went to them, they were more than willing to work with us and start building some prototypes with us as well. So within 3 months, we started this activity in June. So July, August, September. September end is when we launched our Made in India shoes, right? So that's that time. Since we had already done prototyping before, so it was much easier this time. So we got up the curve very quickly and built the supply chain in India. And this time we found knit manufacturers. Again, the thinking was very different. Normally, we were going to footwear manufacturers and asking them, if you make knit shoes, they would say no. Then we said, hey, who makes knit shoes, right? Who makes knit fabric? And knit fabrics are typically used in t-shirts. And if you look at your polo t-shirt, you will typically see that collar is a lot thicker and rather than the rest of the t-shirt. Yeah. And the machinery and the stuff that they use for the collar is very similar to the machinery that they use for the footwear. So we started going to textile manufacturers and we started talking to them and saying, hey, do you have this machinery? It was not about do you make fabric for shoes. The question was, do you have this specific machine, this kind of machine? So we started talking to the machine manufacturers and they put us in touch with a couple of suppliers who were making these. And through that chain, we got suppliers who could make what we wanted. Still, they were not making anything for shoes. We actually had to go and sit with them and say, hey, this is how a shoe pattern is made, right? It is just a matter of programming your machine. Your machine is technically equipped to do it. It is just a different kind of programming that you need to do on it. So we sat with them and we got that done. And thankfully, they were more than open to have that experiment with us because they had capacity lying around. And that's how that kicked off, right? So again, a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of the timing, a little bit of, what do we do now? Might as well, keep the energy in the team and the morale in the team by doing something meaningful. So that all those things just came together and we launched the first India range. At that time, incidentally, we wanted to build a very strong USP for the product, right? The first set of shoes we made were regular all-day wear shoes, which everybody makes, like polyester uppers and very cushiony insoles and soles. But there was no big USP in the product, right? So we said, how do we create a USP here? Then we started researching materials and fibers, which is when our designers who are actually experts in materials and natural fibers, who had actually worked in National Institute of Design and other brands, had that capability to go and look at what other textiles are available. And eventually we stumbled on bamboo. Bamboo is a great fabric for the tropical climate. It is actually used for innerwear because it is so soft on the skin and it is so cool on the skin because it actually actively wicks the moisture from your body, the sweat, right? So that works very well for the tropical climate. We said, hey, okay, so maybe this is a fiber we can work with. The problem with bamboo is it tears very quickly. That is why it's very soft, right? So it tears very
Okay.
quickly. So we had to experiment with the knit structures and combination of materials to make sure that the yarn and the knit fiber is strong enough that it doesn't tear. And that is something that we got right. That's an innovation. That's not easy to do. We are the first brand in India, third brand in the world to do bamboo sneakers.
Wow.
Right? So once that came through, then we had a very clear USP, and that happened in India. We developed this entire thing in India from scratch.
Fantastic.
So all those things are, number one, opportunity. Number two, just inquisitiveness and the proactiveness from our side. Right. And third, yes, signals from the market as well.
Right.
China imports are not going to work. People are not going to go to work. So all these things just started coming around. It's not just one particular signal that triggers this, right? It's a bunch of factors that come together to make that happen. So that's typically how the journey has been.
Fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about your growth levers as a brand that you're leveraging right now. Now that I think for last 6 months or so, the markets have opened up. We are seeing the economy, the larger Indian economy and the global economy kind of on the path to greater recovery. And you recently launched your brand out in the US as well. So talk to us about some of the growth levers now that you are looking to leverage or looking to experiment on to have that next jump in your growth journey.
Sure. Generally, our idea, so we want to be as close to our consumers as possible. That was the concept of launching this as a D2C brand, right? Until 3 months ago, we 80% plus, 85% plus of the orders that we were getting were on our own website, right? So 10 to 15% was from affiliate and marketplaces, but most of the traffic and most of the orders were coming to our website, right? So that was the intent of building this as a D2C brand to begin with. While we also looked at, say, personal care and food and stuff like that as areas, but the problem there is you don't go to a website to buy chips, right? You generally buy chips as a basket of food and snacks that you buy every week or every month. In shoes, it's not that way. If you look at the market, the way shoes work, other than probably 2 or 3 multi-brand outlet kind of places, most of the shoes are actually sold in single brand, exclusive stores. In the modern trade, of course, I'm not talking general trade. I'm talking modern trade. It just evolves. The market has evolved like that for shoes, and we saw that as an opportunity to get very close to our customer, right? And understand very quickly what the needs are, and iterate very quickly on your product by keeping your inventory risks to a minimum, right? So that was the thought to begin with. In the expansion phase, once you got your basic stuff done and your product is going through your website, beyond a point, at least in the Indian ecosystem, core direct to consumer is not big enough. People are still not very comfortable going to a website for the first time, never seen this brand before, from an Instagram ad, going to a website and ordering, right? So we are still very early in an e-commerce maturity journey, if you will. Right, so people are still very comfortable buying on marketplaces. So we know that the next trajectory of growth will come from the marketplaces, which is when we started accelerating our presence on marketplaces. Now we are present pretty much in every marketplace that is out there, and now we'll start investing in building traction on marketplaces as well. And when we launched the loafers and the sliders, which are at lower price points, and entry-level price points work very well on marketplaces, right? While we have our bamboo sneakers, the flagship product on our website, and that's the one we talk about from a brand perspective. There are these entry-level products that you can still start getting traction with on marketplaces. So now almost 1/3 of our business comes from marketplaces over the last couple of months, right?
This is just in India or even across
this is in India. This is in India. The global marketplace was an experiment for us. Incidentally, Zappos reached out to us because they saw a big USP with the bamboo fiber. As I mentioned, most of the brands in the US which are launching, which are the new age brands in footwear, are going D2C, right? And D2C is big enough there, so they can go direct to consumer on their own website. lot of them don't even list on marketplaces, right? So they wanted freshness in the catalog. Their core audience was asking for, what are the new innovations that are coming out. So they actually have started a program for international brands to come and launch on their marketplace. And Zappos is, one of the largest marketplaces in the world for footwear. And that really worked in our favor, which got us excited about international. And because there is a USP with your shoes, things have started working very well as well. We actually launched on Zappos in September, and over the last couple of months, even without doing a lot of marketing, we've got quite a few orders, which in India we would have had to spend for P2C marketing to get that, for example. So the market itself is more mature. They're willing to experiment with new brands, and that is something that we're seeing there. And discounting is not the most driven thing out there, right? Even if it is not discounted, people are willing to buy products and try it out. In India, without a discount, nobody will ever buy online, right? So that's the behavior that is still here. Things are changing though. People are understanding value, but out there the market is a lot more mature. So now that is a new growth lever which has come out in the last couple of months, and where we are seeing promise. Now we are starting to explore, what are the product lines that we can launch there? How do we establish ourselves as a brand with a clear USP in that market? Communication there is very different from communication here to our customers, right? So the audience there is very different. So understanding the audience, what are the right communications to be done, and accordingly, there are other markets that are growth markets that are out there which we can tap into as well. So a couple of other geographies also we started conversations. So idea was to get make this a make in India for the world kind of a story, right? And that has started working in our favor as well. Again, it was inbound. It wasn't something that we were looking at very seriously, but given that the USP was there, and the world's largest marketplace for shoes reached out, that was a clear signal for us to say, okay, let us start exploring. As you start getting into it deeper and deeper is when you start solving each one of those problems, right? Whether it is supply chain, whether it is audience understanding, whether it is pricing, whether it is product range and availability, all these things start getting solved one by one once you get into it. But the key is to get into it, right? That's typically how entrepreneurship works. You just need to go get stuff done, and you will start figuring things out, right? Because we are by nature, we are problem solvers. We will as and when we keep solving them, right? So that's how it has been so far. But now we have 3 levers. Now our website is there. We have marketplaces that we can expand on in India, and we have international marketplaces where we can actually take our product and start selling as well. So now there are enough levers for us to go and experiment and push on to see which one works and which one gives us the best bang for the buck. So we're just getting started on that.
Fantastic. Well, as we come towards the wrap of this session, I want to jump into you as an entrepreneur, as a founder, and along with Utkarsh. What are some of the key metrics that you guys look out for, either on a daily basis or on a monthly basis? Your top 3, top 5 metrics of your business.
Yeah, so we keep it very simple. For us, getting as a consultant, I've been a strategy consultant, right? So it is very easy to start digging rabbit holes and start going deep into your numbers and trying to figure out what's going on, and you will get lost. So we try to keep it as simple as possible, and then wherever there is requirement is when we start digging deeper. Very simple metrics around how many orders are coming through, which product is performing very well, which product is so number 1 is the top line in terms of volume and in terms of value. Number 2 is what is your margin, right? And how are your margins working by product line, right? Number 3 is how much costs are you incurring with your with your fulfillment, with your overheads, and with your marketing. How do we improve on each of those levers, right? So very simple metrics that you track, and then on each of those, for marketing, for example, it is very simple. What is your cost of acquisition of the customer? How much are you spending on discounts versus how much are you spending on performance marketing? If you increase the discount, is your performance marketing coming down, and vice versa? Is there a balance there which is optimum, where you spend the minimum amount of money which considers both discounts and performance marketing? Which channel is working well? Again, so channel metrics you can start analyzing. But bottom line is, what is your return on ad spend, right? If you're spending 1 rupee, how much you're getting in revenue, right? And how much you're getting in margins at the end of the day. So those are key levers that we look at. At the company level, we look at primarily what our cash flow is on a daily basis, how much we are burning. Right, that is critical. You need to watch that out. If your margins are healthy, can you actually look at other ways of financing other than equity? So we do some debt-based financing as well. Right? Is it possible to accelerate without really diluting very significantly in your equity? So those are the kind of things that we look at based on what our cash flow situation is. How much money is going into fixed versus how much is going into variable costs? How can we reduce the fixed part or amortize it as much over a larger base of orders as possible? That is something that we look at every day. Well, not every day, every couple of weeks at least, right? So that is something that we look at regularly. But on a daily basis, it is basically sales metrics, return on ad spend, so marketing efficiency metrics and effectiveness metrics, growth metrics. And on the supply chain and operations, it is whether you're holding to your SLAs, you're promised a 4-day delivery or 3-day delivery or 2-day delivery. Now we are piloting same-day delivery in Delhi right now. Right. So are you holding to those metrics? How many of those are falling outside of SLA and service levels, right? And how do you fix those? So that is something that the operations team and the customer support team hits. There it is for the customer support. It is very simple. It's part of our marketing team. It is not part of operations, right? So there we talk about whether the customer's query has been solved or not. Right? It is not about raising a ticket and then SLA for the ticket. It's not. Ultimately, it's a very simple metric of the customer has a specific question: have we solved the problem for the customer or not? Right? And how quickly have we solved that problem? And that's how we look at that. So it is not about raising a ticket and following the process. It is about very quickly short-circuiting and figuring out what the answer to this question is and solving that problem for the customer. So those are kind of things that we track on a regular basis across different teams. But yeah, broadly, we have still maintained it to be very basic at this point in time.
Fantastic. How big is your team right now?
We are 12 people, including the co-founders. So fairly
pretty lean team.
Lean team, exactly. So design is in-house, marketing, performance marketing and social media is in-house, and supply chain operations, customer support is in-house, right? So outside of this, manufacturing is outsourced. If you look at specific website maintenance and stuff like that, that is the design is in our control, but the execution is outsourced. Performance marketing, the strategy and the intelligence is in-house. The thinking is in-house, but the execution is outsourced. So that's how we keep that internal versus external kind of balance. Fantastic. While keeping the team very lean.
Fantastic. This is going to be a rapid fire section now. I've got a couple of interesting questions for you. First question is...
I'll try not to ramble.
Yeah, sure. So what's your leadership style? How do you operate as a leader?
Trying to give autonomy as much as possible. If things are working great, set expectations and then manage by expectations. So that's my style. If my expectations are being met or exceeded, it's great. Right? Keep giving more and more autonomy. If expectations are not being met, then get in a little deeper and try to solve the problem with the person. So that's typically what my style is. Utkarsh has a lot more laid-back style. I'm a little more aggressive because I'm responsible for daily business numbers. So there is a little bit of aggression there. But I would rather have people own their role and responsibility and proactively take that up and run with it, rather than going and digging and policing everybody.
Fantastic. What's your favorite book that you would recommend to entrepreneurs that you read recently in the last 1 or 2 years?
I'm actually not a very big non-fiction reader. I'm a fiction reader. Okay. I like science fiction, so I read a lot of science fiction. Okay. But in the last year, there are 2 or 3 books that have really caught my fancy. The best one I would say is Obsessed, the one that I've been obsessed with right now. It's about building brands, right? That's the book right now. Right?
Oh wow! Okay.
It's been pretty much something that I've been going back and forth. I've read it thrice already. It's about how to build brands that people love, right? And it's a beautifully written book, talking about very specific things that you can do to make brands happen. Other than this, there is another one called Traction by Gabriel Eisenberg, the founder of DuckDuckGo, wrote it. It's a very thought out and systematic way of figuring out what are the channels that will work for you in terms of traction. Right? Traction is, in my sense, it is selling shoes and
Yeah.
building a brand identity. And he breaks it down to 14 different channels that you can potentially explore. And how do you go through the journey of figuring out which channel works for you? It's very beautifully meticulously written. Sounds like it has been written by an engineer for engineers. So, so those are the two books that I go back to and refer, almost daily, or at least once or twice a week.
Okay, fantastic. Your piece of advice for somebody now in a post-COVID world trying to build out a D2C brand, what would you tell them?
I think whether or not, so COVID is like a once in a lifetime kind of an event, right? And now people are living with it. The third wave keeps getting talked about, but now we've learned to go out when we're wearing the masks, but we are still going out, right? So we'll find a way to live with whatever is out there. But if you look at India as an ecosystem, I think this is a great time for brands to be built in general, right? So no matter which area you look at, India is a brand-starved country. We are still very functional and very commodity business-oriented kind of a market. And now is when people are starting to realize, "Arey, aur kya hai?" Right? Why should I buy from you other than the fact that this is sasta hai or tikau hai?
Right.
Beyond that, what is there? Why should I be associated with your brand? Do you resonate with my values or not? Right? These are the questions that people are starting to think about, and people are starting to ask to brands, which is when you can build a lot more, right? Because there are a lot of things that you can associate with, and you can talk about that resonates with an audience's emotion, right? And that's when brands are built. I think across the board there is enough and more opportunity. Even if you're not starting a brand, go and join a D2C firm and work with them to make that happen. But one of the statistics I heard was that in the last year, in personal care alone, there were more than 1,000 brands launched. Right?
Oh, wow.
Maybe I'm understating that number. I think there are a lot more out there. But that's how big the opportunity is. And the beauty of this is, if you can carve a niche for yourself, and if you can hit the customer pain point, number one, and the right communication, number two, then you can build a brand. And it is not about, unlike a tech world where it is typically an oligopoly, right? 2 players or maximum 3 players will survive. This is not that game, right? You're everywhere. As long as you have a niche that you're addressing, you have a space for yourself, right? So brands can be built across multiple niches, beyond the basic, sundar sasta tikau. Beyond that, when you start looking at differentiation and you start looking at emotional connections, there are enough and more that you can do in that space. So it is not a winner take all kind of a game at all. The key is to figure out the consumer problem and hit that well, right? So there is, I would say, if you are thinking about D2C brands, don't think, just do it. Once you get into the market, you will understand it and you will learn through it. But the chances of you failing are not as much. The chances of you becoming a 1,000 crore brand, yes, there are, you need to cross the big chasm around the 100 to 200 crore brand. But 100 crores is very, very doable at this point in time across any category, is what I would say.
Fantastic. So next question is, between your first startup and your second startup, what are the 3 things that you're doing differently?
Number one, starting to deal what do you call it? Handing over a lot more things to folks in the team. Right. In the first startup, we felt like everything had to be done by us. Right.
So delegation has become a super skill now.
Yes, delegation is something, and building the right team to enable that delegation is very critical, right? So you need to hire people who are smarter than you. I think that has been a big learning for us from the previous startup, and that is something that we are trying to implement here. And hiring people with a little bit of experience as well, because we are not from this core industry. While we can bring that first principles thinking, there are also specific domain experts that you need in specific areas, right? And so you need to hire the right people. That is very critical in this game. So getting help not being afraid to ask for help, right? That is another thing. When you're in the corporate zone, your mindset is not to go out and talk, right? But when you spend enough time in the ecosystem, like folks like you, I just randomly reached out, and immediately within 24 hours, Santosh responded, and you also came on the call when we started talking, right? That openness is something that is mind blowing in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think that has taken a little time to get used to, but now we are more open to ask for help and give help as well, right? So that is the second big thing. Third thing is also figuring out the right time to go and hit the pedal in the market, right? Like for example, now when pandemic is hit, there is no point in spending marketing dollars trying to sell your shoes. You know that number one, it will the return on ad spends won't be great, but more importantly, people will still not buy the shoes, right? It is because fundamentally people are not stepping out. So be more logical, be more common sense thinking about what really matters, and accordingly start trust your instincts. That works most of the times. I think we are a little more trusting of our instincts now.
Fantastic. Last question, Ganesh, before I let you go. What's your personal mantra in your life which makes you lead your life in a certain way every day?
Try a little bit harder than anybody else out there in your position. That's the only thing, right, for me.
Okay.
I have built my life as a generalist, right? I have not been an expert or a specialist at anything, right? And when you're a generalist, the only thing that keeps you ahead of everybody else out there is the attitude and the effort that you put in, right? So you have to try harder. You have to push yourself further. You have to do a little more than what everybody else is doing, and that has been the mantra that I've held for every day so far, and so far it has worked for me. At some point in time, I don't know, I might get tired of it, but yeah, so far I'm enjoying it, right? So every day there's a new challenge to be done, and if you push yourself, yeah. I remember in shop clues, one thing was there on the board when you walked in, right? It said, get up, what was it? Get up and get on with it, right? It was basically saying, don't don't hold yourself, or don't be lethargic, or don't put a half-hearted effort into anything, right?
Yeah.
Just go and get going with it, all right? Get it done. And that's pretty much the mantra that I've held on to right now.
Fantastic. This has been a great conversation, Ganesh, as we wrap up this session. Amazing to hear the journey and the story of building out a fantastic brand, a footwear brand from India for the global market that would have a lot more comfort and convenience that people would love to wear. I wish you all the best, and wish Utkarsh and the rest of the team in Flatheads, and talk to you in a few quarters again, and would love to hear the progress at Flatheads.
Brilliant,
so
brilliant.
much.
Thanks, sir. I enjoyed this conversation. This was fun. Very different questions from most other interviews and podcasts that I've been a part of. So wish you the best with a long standing podcast initiative here, and I will be a regular listener for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's session. If you want to hear more such interesting stories from entrepreneurs, leaders, and operators who have built great businesses, who have been involved in great journeys, do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, on our newsletters at foundershiphq.com. Thank you so much.